Welcome, students, to Chapter 14, Marriage and Family. As in all the chapters, the first thing we want to do is define our terms. So what exactly is family? Well, sociologists say that family is an intimate group of people related to one another by either blood, legal ties, or sexual mating. So the next question, I guess, was we should define marriage. So marriage is really the same thing as family in a lot of ways. It's intimate bonding. And in the past, it's been considered a male or female, but today that definition has changed to include same-sex marriage partners. So the next thing we need to talk about is the shifting changes in marriage and family patterns. So like I alluded to a few minutes ago, family used to be considered a husband and a wife and the children. And that, of course, was referred to as the nuclear family. And then the extended family were grandma, grandpa, aunts and uncles, maybe even great-grandmas and great-grandfathers and so on. So today, though, family has evolved into maybe the people that are living in your house. So there's a much more fluid definition of both marriage and family nowadays. Marriage sometimes even can be considered people that live together for a long period of time, but never really took those formal legal ties for marriage. So there's variations in family life today, and there's variations in married life. Today we see, another change that we see today is the prevalence of single parents. Back in the 1950s in the United States, single parenting was more of a rare phenomenon. Today it's extremely common, as is cohabitation, people living together. That used to be considered kind of a taboo, kind of a social norm violation back in the 1950s, but today that's extremely acceptable. And we also see it with same-sex couples and even people that prefer to be unmarried. Used to be, a few years ago, if you were unmarried, you were kind of stigmatized. People would say, oh, there must be something wrong if you're unmarried. Well, today that isn't the case at all. Many people remain unmarried. And in fact, we all know that people are getting married later and later in life if they do choose to marry. So these changing family structures have had an effect on people. And so you're going to be reading about that more in your book. So there's definitely impact of divorce. For example, if a couple, it used to be thought that if the couple fought all the time, it was better for the children to be separated for the parents to be separated and for the children to live with one parent or the other. But today studies show us that unless the couple is violently fighting, that's really no longer the case. The children are better off, according to sociological studies, if the parents can arrange a way maybe to get along a little bit better where there wouldn't be violence in the family, then those children are better off remaining with maybe an unhappy couple than being divorced. So that's kind of an interesting statistic that's come along in the last few years. So divorce definitely has an impact on children, and you'll be reading about those impacts more in the book. The other thing that we'll end this short video with is family abuse and child abuse. You'll see how definitions of abuse have changed. I know in the 1950s, it was very common for children to be spanked. A lot of children were spanked with a board or with a belt, and that was considered normative behavior back in the 50s and 60s. But today, that would certainly be considered child abuse. Anytime that you would not necessarily spank a child, but if you would hit a child with an object, that would be considered by most as abusive. So ideas of abuse have changed over time, as have views on marriage and views on family and views on homosexuality and so on. So I hope you enjoy this chapter. Pay close attention to some statistics. Here's one really interesting statistic. Did you know that you were more likely to be assaulted by an intimate partner than by some man lurking in the bushes? So that's kind of something that sociology likes to put the magnifying glass in to, because we see that in American culture, most people are afraid not of their spouses, but of a strange man lurking in the parking lot or lurking in the woods. So again, as sociology always does, we kind of peel back the layers and see what human life really is about.